And then on page 15, erecting barriers. Where does that come from? James Madison said, right at the beginning, third line, we can safely rely on the disposition of state legislatures to erect barriers against the encroachments of the national authority. Who's the national authority? Federal government. Who's supposed to erect barriers against the encroachments of the federal government? The states. Okay? In this decision, it said that state legislatures or states and political subdivisions of the states are not subject to federal direction. Don't you wish your state knew that? It's in a Supreme Court decision that a sheriff from Montana helped win. And yet we don't know what's in there, do we? It's a monumental landmark decision, probably the most powerful 10th Amendment decision in the history of our country. Do you think that would be worthy of some attention? I would say especially in Arizona and Montana where it was won, you know. And so I talked to Sheriff Prince just 2 or 3 days ago, and or 2 or 3 weeks ago, I'm sorry. He said he couldn't be here this weekend while I'm here traveling. He apologized, but we renewed some old times. And I said, Sheriff, I said, tell me honestly, don't you think the title of my book, don't you really think that's the answer? And he says, of course it is. He says, we just need a few more sheriffs with some guts. That's all we're lacking here, folks. Guts sometimes comes from education, that they really know the truth. So this is that, and we're going to be patient while we educate them, but we don't have a lot of time, so we're not going to be real patient, okay? So we're going to move forward with this, and we're going to let them know that, okay? You're going to have them read the book, whoever you give it to, deputies, commissioners, sheriffs, chiefs of police, whoever you get it to, make sure you get back with them and see their response, because the next page is pretty important. No, sorry, the next part is going to be right down about a third up from the bottom. And you say the word powerful, we're starting right next to that. The great innovation of this design, what design is that talking about? Of our government design, was that our citizens would have 2 political capacities, one state and one federal. Get this, it's in bold. Each protected from incursion by the other. Who protects us from incursions from the federal government? According to the United States Supreme Court. We do. The state of Montana does that protection. Is the county exempt from that? No. The county is a political subdivision of the state and has the same responsibility, probably even more so. Because as Jefferson said, the smaller the government, the more service to the people. That's where government works best, is at the local level. So of course we depend on our local officials to do that. Besides, most states aren't doing that. So we will. And where does it work best? In our own county, in our own jurisdiction, in our own homes. Keep going. A legal system unprecedented in form. Where am I reading from? Where does this come from? This all is a quote from the Supreme Court decision, Mack, Prince versus U.S. Establishing 2 forms of government, each with its own direct relationship, its own privity, its own set of rights and obligations to the people who sustain it and are governed by it. Madison is then quoted by Scalia. This is mostly Madison talking here, Scalia quoting Madison. Then, the local or municipal authorities form distinct and independent portions of what? The supremacy. The federal government says they're supreme because the supremacy clause, supremacy clause, supremacy clause, supremacy clause. They say it all the time. The supremacy clause is quoted then later in the book. What does the supremacy clause say? That the Constitution is the supreme law of the land and only laws made pursuant thereof are supreme. That makes it pretty clear now, doesn't it? But who shares in the supremacy? The local or municipal authorities, the counties. And Stewart even said this word. He said sphere. You remember what he said sphere earlier? That's a quote from Mack Prince. Sphere. It says, no more subject within their respective spheres to the general authority than the general authority is subject to them within its own sphere. Where do we define the federal government sphere? Exactly. What part of the Constitution? Article 1, Section 8. It says what the federal government is allowed to do. In that, is the federal government sovereign and supreme? Yes. In Article 1, Section 8. But is it very limited and enumerated and very small? Yes. It's the smallest sphere in the world. Do you know how many federal or law enforcement assignments are constitutionally given to the federal government? 4. Can you name them? Treason.
Piracy.
Felonies committed on the high seas or piracy. Counterfeiting. And maybe laws against treaties of nations, which probably doesn't apply too much to us anyway. But and then there's another part where it says they're supposed to protect our country from invasion. So I'll give them border enforcement. Do it. Why don't they try it now? They've done a real bang-up job there, haven't they? Which shows us, you turn something over to the federal government, you're going to get a mess. Next page. This is also very, very vital in this. Second paragraph where it says Justice Scalia emphasizes this point. Get this, folks. This separation of the two spheres is one of the Constitution's structural protections of liberty. What is it? A structural protection of liberty. That there is a separation between the two spheres. A healthy balance of power between the states and the federal government will reduce the risk of tyranny and abuse from either front. Folks, that's a Supreme Court decision, and it's also James Madison. And it's the law. Why? Because it's the supreme law of the land. It's right out of the Constitution. It's right from the Founding Father. Probably the main guy when it comes to the Constitution, considered the father of the Constitution, James Madison. Go back, then go back, just next one, just skip a sentence. Hence, a double security arises to the rights of the people. The different governments will control each other. Different governments will control each other? At the same time, each will be controlled by itself. Then the next question. So who is in charge of safeguarding the people from the federal government when it refuses to control itself? And then it says in parentheses, please write your answer in the space provided. And there's a little homework for you, whoever you give the book to. Tell them to answer that. It's real simple. And there's a lot of right answers. You could say we the people, or state government, or county government, or it would really be great if he said, I am. Yeah, that's the best answer there. I am, or the sheriff, or something like that. That's when if you see an answer like that, you're on your way. We've got that paradigm shifting, and you're helping, and it's going, it's working. Okay? The 10th Amendment basically says this: if the federal government ever hopes or ever dreams of becoming creative and wants to expand the federal bureaucracy or federal government's role or federal power, if they ever want to get creative and go outside Article 1, Section 8, what do they refer to? The 9th and 10th Amendment, saying everything outside Article 1, Section 8 belongs to the states or the people respectively, which also shows you how sovereign and powerful we are as people. We're as powerful as the states because we formed them and they formed the federal government. The federal government didn't start us. Heck, this thing, have you seen this? It's a small U. The states are just united, not United States. Okay? It's a small U. when they declared our independence 233 years ago. We weren't independent. We declared it. These brave 56 men signed their death warrants when they signed this.